You're ready.
Me? Sure, go ahead. I think it's Nancy.
I think, how does that
Nope,
work?
it's you.
You're-
You should be in Jackson, so it's you.
Oh, okay.
Home
Alright,
turf
Kevin.
runs the meeting.
Yep.
All right. Go ahead, Kevin. Call attendance if you'd like.
All right, so the meeting's called to order. So for the record, by roll call, I have Nancy Kellerman,
Here.
Andrew Light,
Here.
Rob Clark. He's waving, yes. Scott Grant,
Here. Tell them to unmute.
Dr. Emery.
Here I am.
And we have from Jackson, we have Chair Janet Salby,
Yes.
Jerry Doherty.
Here.
Kate Fournier,
Here.
and Micah Burhart.
Here.
All right, Jen, this is all you.
All right. So we'd like to move to approve minutes from 5/5/20.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any changes? All those in favor of approving the minutes from 5/20? 5/5/20. All right. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, Nancy gave me the thumbs up.
Yep.
Andrew, good. Rob, good. Scott,
Yes.
and Dr. Emery.
Yep.
And then from Jackson, Jen,
Yep.
Jerry,
Yes.
Kate, and Micah. Good. Unanimous.
Great. So we'll move on to joint board discussion, the Cooperative School District Planning Committee. So have we met yet, Kevin, again? Or?
No. So all the boards, this is just on there just to remind people that, you did all have warrant articles that were at the district meetings. And by article, there were 3 members from each district, and 1 was a school board member. And then you could have 2 at-large members. So you could have more than 1 school board member if you choose to. So I just need by November 1st, if you have those names, and then what I'll do is I'll submit all the names, and then at the SAU 9 and SAU 13 board meeting last month, we will then send out an invitational, kind of an organizational meeting, first time to guide the process from there. So really, before November 1st, if I could just get the names, and I'll bounce those back to you. But like I said, it has to be 1 school board member, and then you have 2 other members. They could be school board and/or others.
All right, we're all set here in Jackson, so I'm pretty psyched with our team. So
Good.
Awesome.
We're still waiting on 2 in Bartlett, so hopefully we'll get that to you.
So I'll send you over the names, Kevin. Transportation. I think we cleared up. We had a bus issue or concern last time at our Jackson meeting that played over to the Bartlett committee, but I have talked to Jim Hill about that, and to close the loop per se, it is status quo. That's what we're doing. It is what it is right now, and there'll be no changes at this time. Any questions on that from Bartlett or any other concerns?
Nope.
All right, because it was a Bartlett parent who had some concerns. So as soon as we can make changes, we'll put it out there and we'll have the bus drivers work on it. But right now it is what it is. So, and I think it's working right now. So nobody's on a bus more than 45 minutes, as far as I know. Board member issues? Anybody?
Oh, I got some, if no one else has any.
Yep.
Okay. First of all, it's nice to, thank you for sending the link. So sometimes we can watch the Jackson meetings, and Nancy sends a link so we can watch the Conway meetings. And I didn't know if Kevin could actually send out to all boards, all the meetings links, because it'd be nice to listen to, because I think it makes you a better board member.
Mhm.
and you get a lot of information. It doesn't mean we need to chime in. You can mute us, but it'd be nice to watch. And I don't know if Kevin can do that or how everybody else feels about that.
You can go on, anyone can go on the SAU9 board, SAU9 website, and if you go under board members and go under agendas, anyone can go on anyone's meeting because it's there as long as we're Zooming. So really, I think you can just do it that way instead of having it where Lori or Kevin or someone has to send it all out to us. Because it's
So then
really, it's really easy. You just go on the agenda. So if you know, like the Jackson's is Mondays or whatever, you can go right on Jackson's agenda and click on the Zoom meeting and get part of it.
Okay. As long as the link's there, that's fine.
Yeah, the link is there. It's on all the it's on the websites. As long as we're still, as long as it will be there as long as we're all Zooming. But it's on every of the all the board agendas. So anyone can get on any time at the meeting.
Okay. Because
Can I make an etiquette request while we're there, if possible? As we're kind of dropping in on each other's meetings, if we're maybe using phones or something other than our laptops there we can go dark on, it would be really nice to maybe put our phones face down, and so that present members are present and that the video feed is a little quieter for the dialogue that's happening.
Makes sense. Yep. It's just common etiquette. Yep. And you'd be on mute as well. So, yeah. All right. Scott, anything
yeah,
else?
another one. So at the last Jackson board meeting, I heard some discussion. I think Micah brought this up. She was talking about diversity and used the word social justice. I didn't know if she could define that for me.
Yeah, you bet. I'm happy to do that. So what we have done, and actually the SAU has done, is we've renamed the former diversity committee a social justice committee as a term to encompass all of the pieces that we're trying to move to supporting for education in our valley. So Yvette is on the committee, as well as Joanna, who's on this call right now, as well as Pam and Kevin. So we can, by all means, feel free to jump in and speak about this. But it follows, we chose to have a social justice name for that committee and to support social justice. I don't have our statement right in front of us, but it's to follow the principles of justice, and equity and diversity and inclusion. And that's really what we're looking to support and to help our Valley school system get behind.
Okay, could you, I'm looking for your definition of social justice. I understand the diversity piece, but what is your definition of social justice?
Pam, did you want to hop in? I see your hand.
I did. Jen, is that okay? So Scott and I talked briefly this morning, or actually this afternoon maybe, and
Yep.
And Scott, your concern to me was about us developing a social justice curriculum. And I acknowledged for you that we're not talking about developing a curriculum. We are talking about acknowledging that people come from many different places, and also acknowledging our growth and committing to recognizing diversity and recognizing equity within our school system so that everybody has access to equal opportunities at schools. So the end of our conversation was more about a definition you had found that you were uncomfortable with. And I did say that if you sent it to me that I would be happy to bring it back to the committee for discussion. But not all committee members are here at the table right now. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, but the committee started as diversity committee. I understand why that committee was formed, but now all of a sudden it's just morphed into something that's named social justice, and I'm still looking for either Yvette or Micah's personal definition of what social justice means.
I mean, social justice is really an all-encompassing term for all of those pieces. Diversity committee was none of us on the committee felt like it held and encapsulated all of the pieces that it needed to encapsulate. And so that's why we moved to social justice, because social justice can hold all those other pieces. So it can hold justice, diversity, inclusion, equity, versus just calling it a diversity committee, we felt like wasn't accurate for what actually we're trying to support. So that's what, so when I think of the definition of social justice, I think about, you know, how to support, as I said, those 4 central pillars.
I have a definition. I sent this to the group, but we have not weighed in as a group on this definition. So I can read that to you, Scott, if you would
Yes,
like.
please.
So it says social justice. Hold on, I need to take my glasses off. Social justice is the proactive reinforcement of policies, practices, attitudes, and actions that produce equitable power, access, opportunities, treatment, impacts, and outcomes for all. Justice is the systematic, fair treatment of people, resulting in equitable opportunities and outcomes for all. It is not just the absence of discrimination and inequities, but also the presence of deliberate systems and supports to achieve and sustain equity through proactive and preventative measures. Like I said, this is a definition that we have adopted at Maine Medical Center Research Institute, and I forwarded to the group, but we have not weighed in as a group yet.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell me more about that, or that's you want to go to the group and discuss that, or?
Yeah, it seems the fair thing to do.
Okay. Well, just the thing is, way back when we have this diversity group, and that's fine, but now all of a sudden it's morphed into social justice and equality and all this stuff. I know there's talk of, you know, even white privilege letters in Jackson, but if we go online and look at social justice, and I told Pam this, it's defined as distribution of wealth, opportunity, and privilege within a society. So the wealth thing, I don't think should be part of this. If you want to talk about educating kids the same way as far as, I mean, in some rich towns don't educate the kids very well. Some poor towns do a great job educating the kids. But if you want to talk about diversity, that's the social justice thing, I think, is a buzzword that gets people upset. The diversity thing means, okay, we want to look at people of different race, color, creed, and whatever. But and almost, I don't know, tell me more. I'm just curious where the committee is going with this.
So Scott, one thing that would be excellent is why don't you join the committee? Why don't you get involved and step in and be part of it? Because what we're doing is charting our way forward for how to be a part of this. So it sounds like it's something you're quite interested in, and you would be welcome to join us in the committee, or you could also join us in one of our subcommittees, and it would be great to have your voice in it as we are creating the path forward. When you say you want to hear more about it, I think that would be the best way and probably the best place for it.
Well, thank you very much. Again, it's the term social justice because that's tied with equality. And equality for me doesn't necessarily mean how you pay for school funding, because that is a big deal. But equality for me is, do kids in schools get the same chance to get a good test score? I'm going to talk about test scores in a little bit, but you can have really rich towns have poor test scores, really poor towns have good, better test scores. So my point is the buzzwords, and all of a sudden now you have to define more words as opposed to just diversity. That I guess it's morphed into something I don't understand.
Yeah, I hear that. I think that for us, diversity wasn't cutting it. And so we wanted to have something that was more nuanced. And I'm hearing your feedback that social justice can be perceived as something that when you shared your definition, that's not how I hear it. And we are inside of that process right now. And again, I would invite you to join us in that process. Joe or Yvette, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I think that's great advice. And I would ask Scott to just read this definition again. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything in there about wealth.
Okay, well, it's not my definition, it's what's online. And again, it says redistribution of wealth, opportunity, privilege within a society. That's what social justice buzzword says. That's my only concern.
But that's not what it says for us.
Okay.
So let me so Scott, hold on one second. Just from a school board perspective and a timeline perspective, the group is still meeting and forming. So you haven't come up with your mission statement yet or necessarily your goals yet. You're still in that process. So once you've come up with that, are you going to be doing a presentation to, say, the joint boards and such like that? So what's your timeline line of getting like school board buy-in on the, like your definition and where you're going. Anyone want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'll step in and say we have a meeting again tomorrow. We're in the throes of it. I don't think that we have set a definitive timeline. Pam, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I know we have something happening in the end of October, but it wasn't necessarily what Jen is asking for. So and because I'm newer to the school board process, I don't want to overcommit on something that isn't actually the direction that we're heading.
Go ahead, Pam. Thank you.
Thanks. So the committee has really struggled quite a bit with what direction to come to this conversation in.
Mhm.
I think some of that spiraling is probably because these are difficult conversations for people to have. So what we decided last week when we met was that we were going to start small conversations throughout our community, both with students, administrators, school board members, and staff. So right now we're pulling together resources and tools that we'll use. And tomorrow we'll also be discussing a schedule of readings or podcasts for people to engage in and then come to conversation. And we'll probably be doing it via Zoom at this point in time. But it really is in the beginning of the conversation. It would be great to have Scott on the committee.
Great. Nancy?
Hi, I just wanted to that it should be going, when the committee comes back, it should be coming like to the SAU as a whole, because it's the SAU committee. So with the time frame and everything, they'll all work on that. And then as they approach and are ready to start the communication, it will go through SAU board, not the individual boards at first, because
Right.
it's an SAU committee.
Right. Perfect. That's what I want to make sure, like there's some,
Awesome. Thank you.
everybody knows what's going on. I think it's a great endeavor, and I'm appreciative of the fact that you're going to be going back and asking the communities and the staff such questions as where you are now, because I know Jackson's done a lot of work on diversity over the years. So it's good to get a pulse point of where we are, and that we're not starting from necessarily ground zero, in certain communities, but looking at the community as a whole and seeing where the direction needs to go, and then just keeping the SAU 9 informed as to what's going on. So that's great. So, and Scott, I think you should join.
Jen, can I just
Oh, sorry.
Scott, I wanted to
Jerry.
correct you. It's kind of amazing how two little letters can completely change the meaning of something. I think you misread the definition of the online definition, Scott. It's distribution of those things, not redistribution. If you're talking redistribution, there you're talking about concern for a lot of different things, but that's not what the definition is. It's distribution of those things. So it's really more of how those things work in your society. It's not, no one's talking about redistributing wealth or resources or anything at this point in time. If they were, that would certainly be more reason to be concerned about it, I think.
Thank you, Jerry, but distribution of wealth is still giving it out. It doesn't mean you're accumulating it by work, and that's fine. I'm not looking to, I want to make your mission statement simple and concise so that everybody can get behind it. That's my whole point of this.
Nancy?
Yeah, and you know what, and Scott, that is good that you brought it forward, but I think still that the committee, as Pam has said, has been kind of struggling in getting, they're forming. So as they form and everything, they'll move forward and they'll let us know as SAU whole how it is going. But I think you need to give them the time and energy of coming up with the mission statement, coming up with the actions, their action plan and everything. That isn't done yet. So once that is all done, then they'll come and let us know, and then we'll be able to review it. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, when I see the mission statement, I'd be more than willing to join, but until then, that's perfectly fine.
All right. Thank you, guys. I think that was a healthy discussion about it. I'm glad we touched on it. All right. Any other board member issues, Scott, or anybody else too?
Or anybody else first, but I have another one.
I don't see anybody raising their hand, so go ahead.
Okay, so I had this discussion at the Bartlett board meeting last month, and I talked to Kevin. And as you know, Jen, the seniors just took SATs, I don't know, couple weeks ago, and the juniors just took PSATs, and the school is now using those as an evaluation tool, which is perfectly fine with me, gets the kids free testing, etc. But my point was, at the last meeting in Bartlett, to track the scores of the testing. So not the SAT, so to speak, but if we go back, there's been, of the 12th graders from Bartlett at Kent, there's probably 15 to 20 kids in that class that have been at Bartlett K through 12. So if we take those scores, put them aside, there's a cohort right there. If we take kids from 6 through 12 from JBS, which includes Jackson, or 7 through 12, sorry, includes Jackson, that's a cohort right there that they've been there the whole time. And then the rest are individual cohorts that those kids have come later or come, go, especially in Conway, it's a large turnover, and I understand that. But my point being is, if we want to have adequate education and learn more about how we're doing with education, the evaluation tool could be used to say, oh, geez, these kids that transit that come in and out, they have either helped their scores or hurt our scores, and how are we doing as a SAU with the kids that are here all the way through school? Now, we had conversations with Joe Yana, and I understand that these tests aren't the best way to evaluate the students, and I totally understand. I'm totally on board with that. But competency-based learning is outstanding, and that's a good way to move forward. But as far as the state's concerned, it'd be nice to see. I think it's easy as hitting a computer button, and just like doing the enrollment piece for kids. I think that would be something that Jackson might want to get on board just to see how that works out. I mean, it might be a nothing, it might be something, it might be we're doing, hey, look at our kids have been here the whole time, they're outstanding, or oh, maybe they're not because kids that come in are better. I don't know. Any comments would be nice to hear.
I think we already do some of that. At least it's broken down by, in my school, I know I see how many of our kids hit the honor roll for Jackson, but I think Pam or someone else can probably talk about, I know that there's other testing and I know we do track it the way you're talking. I just don't know where they showcase those results. Does anybody else? In the past, we've seen it. Yes, Kevin, sorry, thank you.
So there are a couple pieces, Scott, and you're absolutely correct. We know, and the research supports that, the more that students move in their transient, the more difficult it is for the majority of students. It's not absolute, but we do know that there's definitely an impact on the number of students. A few years ago, we did track the number of Jackson students who started at kindergarten and went to grade 6, and there's a very high percentage, I think it was like 85% of the students started and completed at school. Bartlett was a little bit less, and then in some of the Conway schools. So all those absolutely have huge impacts on our students. I will tell you that your Jackson and your Bartlett students, for the most part, do very well if you were to follow them, and especially the students who stay within the school district for their 12 years. Statewide tests, I will tell you, it's going to be a mess for probably the next 2 or 3 years. Each one of the schools, and Gail and Joe can tell you about some of the other data points that they do use, have found to benchmarks for reading scores in the younger students working their way up all the way through. But typically Jackson, those kids do extremely well academically. There's no doubt about it. And I will tell you that our poor kids do, for the most part, worse than our more affluent students. That's just the way that it breaks down. So no, I think that's a fair question. In following the child with those growth scores, I think is really important. Rather than just a snapshot, it's taking a look at how did our students do from year to year, and I think that that's fair fodder for us.
Joe, do you get yours? I know I've talked to Gail about it. Probably every year I pop in and ask her where our kids are standing from Jackson on the high school, honor roll or whatever. You get the same list, right? I'm sure.
Right. We do get the high school report cards and results of testing that they do. And so we do try to look, preschool through 12 or K-12 at how students are doing. And kind of to Scott's point, and Scott, first of all, thank you for recognizing that I was talking more about, we want more than just those few data points. We want to look at lots of different data points for how we're defining success for students. But I would also offer, once we get that data, we can sort it and analyze it in a number of different ways. I remember a couple of years ago looking at, as an example, looking at test scores by gender. And there were some pretty surprising things in there. And so part of it is, what are the questions that we want to ask? Are we looking at questions about how long we have students and how they score? But what are the other factors that might influence how our students are doing? Because that, to me, the important thing of those test scores is not how did we do, but how are we going to use that to do better? How are we going to adjust our systems to try to get at our weak spots? So looking at the data across different ways, analyzing it across different factors, and it is something that we could analyze by how long they've been in SAU 9 or whatever setting we wanted to choose, I guess. So that's my input.
It sounds like some of those questions could be done by the social justice, if they're encompassing equity across the line, even gender.
I think that the challenge, one thing a lot of educators talk about, the challenge of the things that are easy to test are not always the things that we feel are the most valuable or the most important. It's fairly easy to test math skills, and math skills are very important. But if we want to test things like ability to collaborate with others or creativity and problem solving, those are very challenging to assess in a state standardized assessment. So those are the pieces that I want to try to put in place. And I think a lot of the administrators in SAU 9 are working, how can we put in place these other assessments so we can measure over time those other factors too?
Yeah, well, that ties in with the portrait of a learner, and what we're looking for from our graduates is all those soft skills that aren't necessarily calculated on a test, like you're saying. So perfect. Okay. Keep us posted, Joe. Scott, did you have anything else on?
Yeah, I 100% agree with Joe and you. That's definitely the way to go. There's many ways to, test students and evaluate students. But, it wouldn't just be the SATs. I look at the other state scores that we do at lower grades and make those cohorts. But now that we're doing competency-based learning, which don't get me wrong, I'm all about it. I love it. But at an SAU 9 curriculum level, hopefully that will alleviate the socioeconomic disparity, because every school is teaching the quote almost same curriculum. I know that fewer kids, more kids, and transient kids play into that. But I think the more cohorts we have for evaluation, no matter what it is, the better off each school district can be to evaluate those cohorts. And on an SAU 9 level, the more information you have as cohorts, the better off you can take the data apart and figure out, what works and what doesn't, I guess is my point.
Yeah, and I think, Gail, do you have anything to weigh in? Because I know Jackson does a really good job of looking at all those things and then trying to assess them and make adjustments.
Right, and Vicky was really helpful with the middle and high school scores. And we looked at a number of different things. We've been doing the NWEA, as Kevin mentioned. We do the Fountas and Pinnell, and we try to keep them in spreadsheets on a computer each year, look at them a couple of times, but then also for you folks on the board each year, Vicky and I would get together and just crunch all the numbers and align them in boys, girls, honor roll, high honors, and percentage of total population. And I think, as Joe said, it does kind of give you an indication of if every 3-5 years you see that, wow, the girls aren't doing as well, or the people who are moving in and out are doing better, as Scott said. It just lets you know what trends are taking the best test scores. It doesn't necessarily say the most successful, and maybe that's the vocabulary word that we have to get away from is they get the highest test scores. That doesn't always mean they're the most successful, because there are lots of other ways to be successful.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Gail. Scott, does that help?
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
totally agree. I'm just
So there's a
trying to look for
lot,
more.
yeah, there is a lot going on.
The
That
more information, the better.
administration- Right, the administration does, and I think each principal and staff do a lot behind the scenes. And I know it gets a little bit more difficult with the smaller schools because we don't necessarily want to share that information publicly, because then it becomes too close to the students. But I do rely on the schools and the principals to really look at all those things that we're looking at. And I know the Portrait of a Learner that's coming out and the pillars that are in, there's a lot of soft skills that are going to be really a challenge as we move forward to make sure that they're measurable, as well as, I know they're being taught, but are they going to be measurable? So anyway, it's going to be interesting to see
And
how.
if I could just add one more point, in the last couple of years, when we went from the NEAP to the SAS, and now we're using an interim, so the SAT at least is comparable because it's been the same type of test going forward. For the elementary students, we've changed the test so frequently, they don't really compare that well. So that makes that kind of comparison harder now than it used to be a couple of years ago when we were administering the NEAP that had been administered for a very long time, at least as far as the state test goes.
Mhm. That's an excellent point.
And no doubt, we've changed testing so many times in the last 5-6 years. I totally understand that. I'm not looking at the quote test scores from the state. I'm looking at more of cohorts of kids and longevity in each school. I understand Jackson and Bartlett, small population. We don't want to really publicize that so much, but as far as board members and SU9 staff going forward with evaluating tools to see, okay, this guy can use the hammer, this guy can't, or a girl, or you know, I'm saying it's, and that's part of the competency-based thing. But the more evaluation we do, the better off we are. But I'm just concerned in the last 3 or 4 years with a competency base, it's been an SU9 curriculum, and I want to make sure that everyone's doing kind of the same thing. I know that's kind of the point. That's all.
Well, maybe we could have, I know Gail shares our results in Jackson when she gets them, and she breaks them down for us during our board meetings when she can, and when we get a relevant test. So we've been, over the years, been kept up to date as far as where our kids fall and what Gail's looking for the staff to make changes to and such. So it might be something we look across the SAU9s for all the principals to share with the school boards. And you could go back to yours.
And
Just ask. Jerry?
Jen, I was going to say something very similar to that. And Scott, I just want to say, like, I support kind of the idea of what you're talking about there as a board member anyway. But as Jen was just saying, it might not be quite as relevant in Jackson because we're even a lot smaller than you are in Bartlett. And it's easier for us, not only as board members, but even as parents to kind of track those things outside of kind of the data that you're talking about in the cohort one. But that doesn't mean that I don't support kind of what your idea is there and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep. Might be something we bring up at the SAU9 meeting.
That's more I was going with this, but but now that we more of an SU9 curriculum,
Right.
and that's more of Conway picking up to the speed, but absolutely.
No reason we can't bring it up. All right. Any other questions, concerns? I can't see everybody at the same time. Let me scroll through here. Andrew's awake. Okay, we got that. All right, Rob's there. All right. Any other questions? Andy, did you raise your hand? No, no. You just said
Jen,
hi.
if there's nothing else, I just want to say, hi Joe, how you doing? It's nice to see you. How are things going in Bartlett? I mean, from a pressure cooker standpoint, is everyone doing okay and hanging in there? I mean, it's been a long, tough year so far, and it's not even that old yet, and it's just going to get worse. So, how are y'all doing over there?
Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, it's good to see you as well. We're doing okay. I mean, I feel like a little bit of a broken record in saying that the teachers are working extremely hard to try to make the distance learning and the face-to-face learning work for all of the students. It's just got extra layers to it. You know, it's not anything that the rest of the world's not dealing with, but since you asked, yes, it's extra challenging. I do think, you know, in terms of Jackson's direct interest in terms of, at Bartlett, that middle school cohorts, you know, we've made some adjustments to how we had to do it this year. That I'm not sure the Jackson board is aware of some of the things we're doing. So our typical advisories that were mixed by grade level, this year we had to split them by, I mean, they used to be mixed 6th, 7th, and 8th in the same advisory. This year we've had to split our advisories by grade level. So an advisory has only 6th graders or 7th graders in it. And that was something that we were unhappy about, but we had to do to keep.
What was the reasoning, Joe, for that?
So that when the 6th graders, for example, are then learning, they're in the same cohort, keeping that same group together. So that's been a big adjustment. Our students, one of the things that was really nice for middle school is students could move room to room. And now, due to COVID, our students are staying in the same classroom for the day, and the teachers are actually the ones moving. Developmentally, that's not the best thing, but in terms of COVID precautions, that is the best. So that's another thing that we're temporarily doing, which, you know, just adds to the challenge for the teachers. They're now going with their cart and their laptop, and they're going to the next room and plugging into their projectors and teaching the distance learners. So they're kind of catching the brunt of it on all of that. Despite that, I think there's some nice successes. We're getting kids outside. The middle school in particular takes 3 outside breaks each day. They have their first class block and then a nice outside snack break and movement break in cohorts, but at least they're out there and able to move around a little bit and get some fresh air. The middle school did take, I think it was October 9th maybe, that they took a day and they were able to walk from here to some different hiking trails. They took the kids out on just a hike for the day. It was a beautiful day. They had a really nice day getting outside and out of the classroom for the whole day. Sports has gone quite well. I don't know if you are aware, but we had kind of a slow start to our soccer season, but then we did make arrangements with Kennett Middle School to work with them on kind of an ongoing soccer schedule for our students. And then we have a few students that have been participating still in the Kennett Middle football and field hockey programs. So we're glad that we've been able to get to that point. We're starting some conversations about winter. What are we going to do about basketball? What are we going to do about skiing? Those have not been determined yet. I did have a ski coach ask me recently, are we going to have a team? And I said, I hope so. It's still being determined. And then Gail and I, as spring will probably be here before we know it. I can't believe it's middle of October already, but Gail and I probably in February will start talking about transitions for the Jackson 6th graders. What are we going to do to start getting them integrated and connected with Bartlett as spring comes on? So that was kind of long-winded answer, but
that's perfect.
Give you the update.
Joe, thanks for sharing that. And I just want to thank you and also the Bartlett School Board. I mean, I know we don't really talk too much about our students in Bartlett, but that's mostly because of, I think, of the trust and faith that we have in not only the Bartlett School, but the Bartlett School, the Bartlett School Board as well. So thank you all for that.
Yeah.
We love having the Jackson students, and I again, like, it's so funny because once they're here for a couple weeks, I forget who's a Jackson student. They're just all our students is the way I look at it. And I think the middle school team does as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with Jerry. We completely trust you guys with our students, so we appreciate that. So thank you. All right. Anything else?
Quick question. So back to the skiing thing. I talked to Joe about this earlier. I know you guys do black. That's probably doable, hopefully. Now that Attach is owned by Vail, and they have a reservation system, I don't know how that's gonna pan out, but I offered, and maybe now all board members listening, if I know of 2 very high ups I could simply pose a question to Anatash saying, is it possible that you would allow our kids to come for ski days and to be determined or something? Because they might just say, no way, we're having that this year because of COVID, or it might save a lot of time. I know ESSC and CRAM was different. They can work that out, but Tash is big corporate. I don't know, looking for input from Joe or the board. If you want me to make a quick text, I can ask them, or I don't know.
I think, we've got some things coming up, and I don't know if Kevin or somebody else wants to weigh in, but we've got some conversations coming up in the next short amount of time with ESSC to look at options. To me, it would make sense to bring a plan to the mountain instead of us just saying to them, do we have permission? I think they're going to want to know what it looks like. So bringing some kind of a plan to Attitash would be my
I know the plan. I get that, and that works out awesome. But if they're going to say absolutely no, maybe it's up to you. I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
I think you should wait, Scott. I think
Okay, fine.
it's from ESSC and from Joe and all of SAU9 so that Vail understands there's a new GM coming to Attitash. So once that person gets here, I think it would be better, as Joe said, to bring the plan instead of like an individual going and talking. I think it should be from ESSC.
Just a question. Okay, perfect. Just trying to help. Perfect.
Yeah, no, thank you.
And Joe, I know your backup plan, Black, would always welcome you, just in case.
I'll keep that in the back of my mind. Thanks.
Ooh,
I'll make
that
sure of
could,
it.
interesting. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Just a different day. What about Nordic? Since I assumed you're talking about skiing because of Nordic, but because ESSC is a different animal. But what about your Nordic team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little too early for us to make that decision. Vance and I have had conversations about winter sports. We're planning to try to offer ski teams and both Nordic and Alpine if we can make it happen in the same way that we did with the fall sports. I think following our guidelines, if we can stick to the guidelines and have a ski team for Nordic and for Alpine, we would like to do that. The coaches are interested in doing it. We've got students that are interested in doing it. So I'm cautiously optimistic, I'll say.
Great. And Joe, just out of curiosity, how many new students do you have in the school?
Total new from K to 8?
Yeah, I'm just curious how many.
I think it's 26.
Wow. What's your total number now?
179.
Okay, that's good.
Including our distance students, it says,
Right.
which is.
But how many left homeschool and charter school? That's a number 2.
The total that left is greater than the total that came in.
Really?
Well, by
That's completely.
Left to either homeschool or moved. We had some families move out of state and to charter school. So that combined number is greater than the number that came in.
Wow, I did not expect that. Okay, interesting. Any other board member questions? Can't see everybody, so chime in. No? All right.
One comment. So you guys haven't met in person because ?
Who?
As a board, Jackson board.
We don't really want to bring Gail into it. She's staying in the school, and several of us on the board are pretty much first line. So,
Okay.
Yep. So we felt it was safer for our administration and the building for us not to be in it at this time.
Okay. And if it did meet in the past, do you do the salute the flag at the beginning of meetings or no?
We did once, when we met once. So yes, it's on our agenda now to do
Okay.
it. Yep. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Any other business? Kevin, anything else that we didn't?
Yeah, just real quickly, I had the opportunity to go up to Kennet High School today and spend a couple hours up there, just to get a feel for how things are going. kind of stayed out of the buildings, but just wanted to double check. And I know Jerry's brought this up before, but I was just thoroughly impressed with the student response to following the guidelines. The kids, every single one, and had the masks on and up over their noses, and in the classrooms where you could tell the kids were, assigned to seats spread out in the classrooms. The class sizes were, 12, 13, 14. Some were a little bit smaller. I did see the transitional time within the classroom. The kids stay in the classroom. But the overall operations, I think it was good for me and confirming to me that people are taking it seriously in our schools, and you can tell the kids want to be there. And because if they didn't want to be there, they would have not been wearing, the masks and those things. So kudos to the folks and the students at the high school for doing, in my opinion, an excellent job of following through.
I think you guys handled it, not to say talk out of turn, but I think the whole COVID situation that we did have the other week was handled so seamlessly and with such, professionalism. The kids were all impressed with it. Everybody did what they needed to do. There was no question about what to do. And the way you guys tracked people, you even pulled one kid off a bus that was traveling somewhere. I thought that was outstanding. And since then, we have had no other issues to my knowledge, so.
Yeah, the good news is, you're right, Jen, the staff, I will tell you that the DHHS, the response really did come back to a lot of it back on the schools, in the contact tracing and all of those things, which shows you the importance of knowing where those students were and determining for all the adults and all the kids in the building who was in close contact and who was not, and getting that information out. So we did learn a lot from this. I know that Joe and Gail both have updated their response plans from what we've learned along the way. People are doing an excellent job. Our school nurses, in particular, Helen up in Jackson and Bartlett, has been, dynamite all the way through as far as leading the charge. But our district level nurses in the SAU have just been worth their weight in gold, if you will. And they are, the other districts, I keep saying this, but they are following the lead of a lot of the work that's being done here. And, I was saying at the high school today, we're very fortunate to be able to offer these opportunities for our students, both in athletics and career tech and in person, and also having the distance learning option. There are many schools in our state that don't have anything even close to what we're offering. So, I do take a lot of pride in the fact that we were able to pull this off, and a lot of hard work. And I know Gail and Joe, have been out straight since March as well. So kudos to those guys.
Yeah, no, couldn't thank you enough. An outstanding job covering that.
Jen, can I just add something to what
Yes.
Kevin just said? I just wanted you to know that our nurses worked so hard in debriefing immediately what happened, that the response to positive COVID case that they developed, that format and the procedures, has been adopted by the New Hampshire School Nursing Association and is shared with every district now in the state. So they really have knocked it out of the park, and they're so committed. They were debriefing that evening. So kudos.
That's
to them.
awesome. Yeah, so it's too bad that stuff doesn't make the paper on the good side. Yeah, awesome job. Any other business? All right, next meeting set for May 4th, 2021 in Bartlett. All right, adjourn, motion?
Motion.
Second.
All right, thanks guys. Thank you so much. Good to see you all.
Hey, thank you guys.
Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See all the rest of you soon.
Yep.
Bye.